So we're going to start with lateral lung work. Lateral lungs, feeling the movement, the lateral movement in the lungs and the ribs. So you have a blanket rolled at the base of your mat, and I like it if you have a little wall space today. You don't have to set up right at the wall, but some of you probably use the wall nearby just so it's easier access. So if you're pretty close to it, be a little cautious. I don't want you to have the knees bending on this one. So if you reach the legs down, you want to sit on the edge of the bolster. You've got a blanket at the back, and it's flat. It might be something that you use. And then I want you to have your sand nearby, your blocks, and if you have a ball. Okay, your belt is behind you. So now when you lower back, it's better to be farther forward on the bolster to get here than to be too far back, because now I'm just gonna let my head lower down to the blanket. And then my focus is, again, this sense of elongation in the front. It might take your breath away in the first few seconds, just kind of a gasp, because the bolster should be pushing into the lung force. So this upper back area kind of is being pressed into, so the front area expands out. Okay, now you take the legs so they separate enough so your feet can be kind of lackadaisical. I don't want them to be trying to flex or point. They just happen to be part of you, but they're not that interesting. So if your legs are on the blanket roll, I like to feel the roll kind of near my calves. And then as I add and decide, if you don't like where you are on the bolster, you can always sit back up, go farther forward, try to lie back. You want to feel like your shoulders touch the ground. And my blanket is not under my shoulders. That is a bad demonstration there. So my blanket is not under my shoulders at all. Okay, now set up for success here. You have your sand. You either have yourself placing it on, right? Or once you access that experience of pressure on the upper legs, the legs might actually kind of fall out a little bit more. Well, they're not going to fall out of you, but if we want to have that feeling now, so this lateral motion of the ribs. At first, my legs went that direction. I could feel a little bit of pressure in my back. So I'm going to work on really opening up in the front body so that the arms reach from the armpit chest to the elbows. And once you're aligning in this kind of openness with the arms and release with the thighs, then we work on that lateral movement of the lungs and the ribs. So easeful in and out breath. Adjust so that the throat is relaxed. Again, be careful here. I'm already finding my chin is pushing towards my chest. Oops, so I want to work on that. There's space here. It's okay if there's a little bit of slide so the neck is lengthening, but you don't want to jam the chin to your chest. So you might go with a little less blanket just at the occiput so it kind of holds my chin to lift. It's kind of nice. Right at the shelf of the back of my head. If at any time this is just too much on your back, you could certainly bend your knees, and it's almost instant relief there. And I still adjust the movement of my ribs outwards, and then try my legs to stretch back down. So we're going to complete a few more rounds of breath. Let's take about 4, focus. Pulling on the inhale, but feel when you inhale through the nose that the abdomen lifts up. And then on the out breath, the abdomen relaxes down towards the spine. And feel the presence of the spine and its relationship to the breathing rhythm, right? So I want to use my breath movement to eventually help massage the stream of muscles besides my spine, my paraspinals. Not that deep, intense breathing will get rid of any back pains, but if it doesn't feel like there's relief, then go back to bending the knees. So my bolster is under my it's under my whole back area, but all the way up right where the shoulder blades, kind of where you can feel the scapula. Okay, now let's take a moment here where you feel as much neutral position with your neck, meaning it's not pushing the chin down nor pushing your head back, just simple center. And this could be an exercise on its own to keep the neck in this position. Let's see what happens. We'll slide the sand away. We're going to keep the bolster just the same, but you might use your blocks here. So you're going to shift your blocks to the sides of the hips, besides them on the floor. And then lift up the feet so that they push into the bolster. Now, if you're real tall and you put your feet up and you're kind of on the floor on the other side, then what you'll do is just slide back a little bit on the bolster, which is fine. Some teach this where you're farther back anyway, and the bolster is just under the lower thoracic and the lumbar. Okay, I don't mind keeping the bolster pretty high. I like to keep the lateral sensation in my ribs as much as I can. Now, once you get your feet up on the bolster, you're going to move the knees apart in towards cobbler's pose. So that would mean the feet are together, the knees are out. And you could use the blocks at, well, they may not even touch your legs, right? You might find, oh, I have them all the way up and I can't complete that connection, possible. Maybe you need 4 blocks. Okay. But if you can feel kind of nudging the blocks close to the bolster, you might find a connection with the blocks farther out. You might find them closer in. I don't mind keeping them very close, but the challenge for me is keeping those feet connected. You could do things like using the belt around your feet to keep them together, but this is nice to just try. And then let the legs kind of fall out into the knee experience. The thigh muscles get a whole stream of intense stretch. So the arms open. I would take the belt and get any side of it, even if you don't have it doubled up, but grasp a hold of your belt and feel a mellow pull, pulling the belt so it moves outwards. And then feel that correspondence right into the ribs. Let your head center back with the neckline. Okay, now I've got to work still with the chin pushing down. So find where the head is right in center where you can nod it side to side. And you're trying to find some balance. Oh, the effort it takes. Still there's sensation that's brewing right through the inner leg, the groin, stimulating that circulation of lymph. Okay, now release the grip, bring the knees to point up, and we are ready to turn the bolster. It's bolster turning time. Okay, so shift the blocks to the side. They're going to be kind of at the second setting coming up. And what you're going to need coming up will be a ball or one of the blocks. And then place the feet on the ground and let the feet angle be so that they might turn out, splay out, but when you push into your feet, you should be able to press down and lift the hips up. You need 2 feet really to do this one. And then as you reach your hand underneath to the bolster, push the one side of the bolster that's closest to your upper back over to the right. Take the other side as if you flip the bolster. So now it's the cross horizontal. And then you might have to kind of scoot yourself down to feel like you're supported with the back of the pelvis on the bolster, but scoop the knees in towards your chest. To let it be a bit of a searching project. If you want your blanket higher, you could fold it up 1 more to a quarter fold. I'm pretty content with the blanket like this for now. We'll see how I do with it. But when your knees are moving in, this could be a nice release for the back after where we've been. So the hands can guide the knees, or you can let gravity do the stretch. Now, that could be great, just letting gravity feel that you pitch the knees into the chest, because the bolster helps you lift the back of the pelvis. Well, bolsters are great. Yeah, mine is probably a little lopsided, I'm not sure, but hard to see it. Okay, now, the neck stretch, if it's feeling like this low blanket for you is too much pull on the neck, then you could double it up again. So you have just that quarter fold that we're used to for some of our posture patterns. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll add a block or ball. If you've got a ball, use that. Place it between the knees and feel when you push into that ball, the feet kind of just drain down from the knees. So the feet relax, the legs squeeze into the ball. Okay, place a block on each side of your bolster. Okay, block 2. Now off to block 2. Okay, knees go to the right, and feel if you can settle a touch onto the block so that you're trying to stretch your torso a bit. You could kick your feet out if that's kind of happy for you to get that length out of your back, but the arms for me are slanted down, so it's easier on my chest opening. Okay, now squeeze into the ball when possible. Breathing. It's like you're isolating the leg muscles. And then bring the knees back in towards the center, but they're up, they're not into the chest, they're center, and then to the left. And use that block, use it to shift it around until you can touch to it and feel where there's length in the waist. I want you to feel like it's the waist that gets the stretch, even if you do feel it in your hip too. Feel the waist stretch, feel the arm out. This heavy sandbag over here, this is harder to nudge away than I thought. And when you come back in center, we'll go bumper block one more time each side. So let the thighs motion over. If you feel like you're kind of falling onto one side of the bolster, that's what's happening. Come back in center and over to the left. Okay, let the back get a little bit more stretch. We'll do one more time each side, but a little faster pace. If you're not squeezing the ball so much, that's fine. It's basically a spacer for your back. And go one more time to the left if you're there already. And then back in center and purposely knees towards the chest. And if you've got a block, just be sensitive that the block does not push into your face. If it's a cork block, it would be a workout, huh? All right. Now, you can tell when the knees move in that there is some type of motion in your lower back. So when you come back up center, remove the block, get your belt. Okay, you could lower your feet down to get into this one. So what I want you to do is take your belt that's maybe buckled up. If not, what you're going to end up is having this belt. I'm going to put the buckle on my dominant hand side. So you'll bring it overhead. This is not the most elegant instruction, but around the ribs. Okay, so I just scoot it under. There's a pocket there right of my upper back to put the belt around. It's very open because the bolster kind of keeps it open. So here we're going to take the belt. You kind of have to find your measurement now. Reach the right knee into the chest and scoop the foot into the belt and lift the right foot up. Okay, let's go right foot first. So if your belt is twisted, which is probably the case, get the belt high up onto the back. Okay, stay onto your back, but I want you to kind of see, you have the belt, so it's high up on your back. It's not low. This is not a good idea at all to have it this low. You want to have it high up at the upper lungs, right? Goes pulling and stretching it. All right. So the blanket could still be used under your left foot for this one. But when you're here, Now you don't want it any higher than, of course, your armpits, right? That's like your destination extreme, right, at that point. But it would feel kind of nice there. So flexing and feeling that circulation through the calf. I like this one, this rib float, because I can feel the lateral movement of my ribs when I breathe. Okay, add sand to left thigh. Reach it carefully. Smother the top of that left thigh with the sandbag. Okay, and you might end up letting the sandbag be kind of curved, kind of turn it. Mold it with the leg, so it doesn't need to look a certain way. You don't have to check and see, does it look good? It should just feel helpful. And the right leg gets more stretched when the sand goes on the left. So we have that belt. Mine keeps sliding down a little bit. So I'm trying to find the correct lift with the right leg to support the belt around my ribs. So if I let my foot kind of keep pushing downwards, it's kind of going against the idea here of that movement with my ribs. So you can tighten the belt down. You can make it a little bit intense, flexing the foot, and use the moment of arms towards cactus, and where you can settle the hip bones, the thigh bones, and finding that balance through the hips. And this is a little bit kind of a higher calling for circulation because it adds the ribs. You try to balance the hip connection. And if you kind of let your eyes relax and just zone in, your right foot might turn a little bit out. Just feel where your circulation where it's increasing, and then find the areas that you can purposely center, which is probably the left leg and the heart. Going deeper into your practice and focusing on where you could surrender and where you could feel supported by the props. And now switch sides and feel your way into the transition by maybe moving the sand to your belly and the left leg up into the belt. So I don't mind kind of feeling my hands hold the sand, try to keep my centerpiece solid, and then move the left leg up. Sometimes you use your hands on the belt to figure the second side, and you might trust that direction when you lower the right leg. Here's where I have a little difference in the leg right now because the hamstring's slightly tender. So you might have to loosen up the belt, second side, honor where you're at, right? Feel if the circulation for any reason feels a little bit extra intense, but you want to stay with that and see if you can find balance from each side, which is should be recognized if you try for that, because it would be good if you can have the measurement on the first side just like that, and then go to the second and see how you can balance and repeat that. Now the belt might be sliding down, right? So you readjust so it's back up as high as it can go. You know, and the ribs are kind of tricky, right? Because it's not a layer that we connect to that often. We're not maybe pro rib breathers. No gills intended here. So where you feel the stretch through the leg, I like this one for my calf or the backing. Have to keep maybe some softness in the knee, but you're probably pretty safe here when you're upside down with the leg versus if you have the leg on the floor, and because that increased tilt in the pelvis pushes undue pressure on the knee joint. So inversion with the leg lengthening is really, I think, pretty safe. Of course, balance for yourself. Arms release out. You could try moving them farther back. Yeah, and if you notice some change in the lungs or sinuses, this might happen here. So if you sneeze, it's all good in your home. Feel the press into the foot. Move the belt maybe to the ball of the foot. I like that kind of intensity in the calf. Feels nice. The calf, I don't feel my calves much because I walk. I just push into my feet. Most of the day, I'm just pushing all my weight into them. And this is a different way to elongate into the legs. So my pelvis is my root now, right? It's the center of gravity, of course, but it's also your base. It's your foundation. So maybe relax the eyes for a few more rounds of breath. Noticing the spine. It likely is adapted by now from all we've done. And feel the abdominal motion with the breath. Relax the right foot. Okay, now big shift here. So slide the sand away, unbuckle. Okay, if you have a D-ring belt, it's different, right? If you have one that slides, you don't have to deal with this. But it's nice to have the buckle belts for other reasons. So however you are, you're going to latch, to take the latch of the belt apart, so it's no longer a loop. And then slide around so that your hands can now bring the belt sides together. Left foot is still up. Right hand holds the belt. So it's kind of in front of the knee area. For some of you, it might be, your hand might be closer to your shin. For some of us, it's closer to the upper thigh. And it depends on your range of motion, doesn't it? So I don't mind having my hand a little bit closer to the upper leg. So now as I guide my left leg over to the right, I do want to feel like my hips are very comforted by the bolster. It's very satisfying to have this cushion under them. But as you cross the left leg to the right, you don't have to aim to go as far as possible. And when you feel that reach of the leg, there's also a reach of the hip. So if I bend my left knee, I can engage into my lateral leg muscles closer to my hip, like the IT band and the piriformis. Right, that's definitely a sheath, an outer sheath that's a very awake in this position. It helps the back to get that stretch. Okay, keep a strong bend of the left knee, bring it back up, isolate back to the center with both feet up for a moment, bring the left foot down, less than a moment that was. Hold the belt together with the left hand now, cross it over to the right, oh, sorry, left. So the right leg goes to the left. So as the leg crosses, and you kind of have to figure out if you have like a wall next to you, do you change your momentum just because it was there? I may have been more limited in my mind with the reach of the leg. So you want to feel from the body how that sensation is through the hip. Okay. So let the right foot kind of be heavy into the belt. Use the left hand's kind of to hold on to the belt and pull. And then you're deciding on the intensity completely. So if you get a little more lax with the belt, the leg might shift downstream, which could feel good in the side of the leg. Explore it for a moment. Feel how the leg sensation is guided by the movement of it downwards or a little farther across or up. The belts are great to use for this type of study in the leg, is when you swing it over. It's even more interesting than when you just put your leg over on a bolster, because you can work on the exact tuning of the lateral muscles of the leg. Little leg tune-up. A New Year leg tune-up. Bend the right knee. Okay, done with that. Take the belt away. Well, actually, let's use one more. Let's bring the belt under the feet because we're here. Take an inversion, bring the feet out wide, and let the legs extend, right? So they could do a little micro bend. They could straighten out. You're in a wide angle, but pull with the hand straight down and use the belt under the feet to stretch them, right? You want to feel even though your feet, the skin doesn't feel as elastic as other parts of your body, it's pretty tightly wound up on the bones, isn't it? There's not a lot of looseness with a foot. So try to really pull to stretch that skin. You don't have many opportunities in the day to do this. Okay, now pull and slide the feet together and bring the knees to the chest and take the belt off, and let's go into side sage. There's a lot to do today, so let's keep it going. Belt goes aside, knees go side to side, let it be cozy. And then when you roll left, we're going to the left, slide down off the bolster and get your blanket on the other side. And let's shake it out. And now you're going to use the blanket stack. So this is a nice way to go. I've got my 2 blankets, I stack them up and they're in quarter folds. This is probably plenty. It depends on your blankets, and they're all a little different. Like this one's a little bit fluffier, it looks like. It's also shrunk, so it's bulked up in a different way. But I get my sand, and I think I can get it, and then I'll bring it over to the sides of my left knee and put a block overhead. Or if you have another bolster, you could put that on the other side. You could put a chair or a stool. And then if you have a ball, that should do it. Okay, now we can do our shape. So take this next side shape so that the left hip it's actually kind of my waist thigh touching the bolster. So I'm trying to lean into it. I do want my left leg to get close to it. Okay, so right leg, maybe a ball. Some of you know ball. Some are going to use nothing there. And as you add your sand to the side of your body, you're going to lean to the left. Now, I'm obviously kind of rotating to the ceiling with my ribs because I have a habit of doing that. So the part I want to lean into is my head into the blanket. Right, so I want to let my weight of my head release down to my left cheek. And actually, it's kind of both cheeks. It's the rear and the face that's trying to rest down. So most of these things synchronize together in the end. And the right arm reaches over, or it goes open or down by your side. So if this is a strain on the inside piece of the shoulder, even if you like the stretch on the side, but it's just too compressive right here on the inside, I would have the arm this way. There's no reason to make this more comfortable. But if you feel you can go with that reach, it's okay, you can adapt it. with the hand on the block. Take that shape and then breathe and feel how the breath moves. And feel the weight into the props, even the weight of your head. Even though the sensations up in the top of our body feel a little different than the waist and the hip, they're still pretty important to get it right. So that if I have my head kind of turning around, or I'm using my eyes a lot to look around, then I kind of miss out on the internal emphasis. Right? And the hope of restorative or a yin yoga, right, is that you're going slower and you can focus on that internal adjustment, feeling inside. Amplify that awareness and breath. And let the weight of your body sink down. You can move the arm anytime. The left arm should probably stay in between the two props, the bolster and the blankets. So it creates the beginning of a twist. Okay, now if the arm is over, lower it down to the sand and slide it away, just close to you though, and we'll take a counter pose in between. Now you have two choices. One's more movement, one's more stillness. The word more is probably not required on that one, but roll to the left, and then when you come up to the seat front of the bolster, you can choose to do windshield wiper, which is clearly movement, right? Elbows down, knees go side to side, feet as wide as the mat. That would be the critical part of this one. So sometimes it's hard to do that. You kind of get them close. It doesn't do as much glute massage. Second option is on your back, head back to the blanket, block under your pelvis. And I don't think this is a big windshield wiper one. Okay, so if you're choosing this, which is, I like this version in between because I'm trying to let the emphasis be in my ribs, my breathing, really work on that respiratory strengthening, and resistance is what that ends up being. So it's not a bad idea just to lie back and let the breath do the work of movement. It won't be a glute stretch, right, as much as windshield wiper. You could do a little of both. Take a few moments here, counter pose, let the knees stay bending. So it becomes about the rib spatial expansion. And feel the abdomen lift and lower. Yeah, from the side position to the center, the breathing in the ribs comes back towards the heart here. So it's a little bit of an inversion. It's the energetics of the pelvis lifting. So it pushes back and returns the blood flow back to the heart. Okay, now shift side. So push into your feet if you are here with the block under, move the block away, roll to the right. If you're windshield wipering back and forth, you can roll to the right. And we'll all join in side sage with the right side down. And take the leaning shape of the waist. Yeah, I still find occasionally I'll try it without the ball or something on the inside of the left leg, and I come back to using it. So it works for me. And some of you do not use the ball, I know. So up to you. If it's a nice support, add it in. But placing that sand to the outer left side, and then feel the reach of the left arm. I feel if the shoulder band, right in the side land of the ribs and the shoulder, many of us might not really identify with shoulder awareness when we're on our side. But, you know, we feel it when we're on our back, opening the chest or forward bends. But this is still experience, right? Into the shoulders. It's a nice relaxation in some way for your trapezius. It still works the lats, right? But you might notice, oh, right below my neck, I can relax. So left arm is either over or it's besides you. And notice the difference. Maybe you're starting to find differences in your shoulders. Little subtle things that you need to, you know, work towards creating a shape that's a little more soothing for you. You let the weight of your head turn down to the blanket. And be sensitive to the breathing, expansion, and centering. Okay, now we're going to link this shape into our seated upright shape. So you can feel that there's some dynamic on the side, right? Side, when you're on your side, it's easier to feel the side, right? You notice, okay, I'm on my side, I feel my side. When you sit upright, it's a little tricky to honor that awareness expansion in the side. So experiment with moving the sand. Now it goes to the right side. You could actually put it on the right and fine. Try to get up with that, stay, keeping it there, but I think that would be a little bit of a nuisance. So you're gonna roll your weight to the right side, then bring your left knee to the right knee, and then come on up and look back at your blankets or the screen, whichever you wanna do, and pull your blankets in close. Even if they're like the height of your bolster, no problem. Rather use that. Get the block from behind you and sit up on your bolster so that the right leg is tucked in. We were just working on this left side. Well, we were on the right side, but left side was exposed. So accommodate your seat onto the bolster, okay? And then let's take a block set in front and a sandbag on the right inner thigh. Well, it's kind of upper inner thigh, isn't it? It might not be. I think if you drop the sand too close to the knee, it's not the best for the knee. This would not be like the best movement for my knee joint. So I have to keep it pretty high, like it's hugging my hips here, or my right hip, I mean. All right, so let the left foot cross forward of the right. It could be knee, it could be shin. Probably the farther over the foot goes, the best for your pelvis. And now when you have this moment, actually, wait a minute here. Put your sand on the left side. We're going to use it on the right when we twist. Oops, at least I corrected. Okay, so now you're going to use the height that you're on, right? You're on something, you're on the bolster. That helps you tilt forward, supposedly. I'm finding that the isolation changes with maturity. Sometimes everything just becomes like one glob of feeling. So the idea with the strength and the continuity of awareness is to feel now when you lean forward that you get your blocks, even if you've got to gather them closer or out to the side, even besides your left foot is fine. But use the hand on each block and you're leaning forward. Yeah, I think I'm gonna use my ball under my right leg. Okay, now I feel pretty much like you levitate your legs a bit in this position because of the bolster. I know you're not levitating, but it does lift them. And now as you keep that movement, now I want you to feel like there is movement out of your back with your arms. It's not like you're closing them in. Okay, don't go too far forward. I mean, if you can go farther and you can keep your spine long, that's fine, but I'm feeling like this is just fine for my back. Okay, the left hip should feel something, some circulation in the hip. Okay, take the blocks to the right. Now this is kind of kitty corner, I guess. It's not specifically over to 3 o'clock on that side. It's like a 1 o'clock pivot. Okay, now when you come back center, you're going to move your sand, carefully come back up to your right thigh. Okay, any ball goes away, and then cross the left leg over the right leg, door 1. Option 2 is my foot goes on a flat block in front, and it could be pivoting open like this, like it would be sort of to get over to the other side of the leg, or you could have the bottom of the foot down and let the hips center down and lift the ribs. I kind of like this one too, with the block. All right, so reach the right elbow to the left leg, twist whether your foot is on the block or not, and the left hand is back to the blanket. If that's too high and you're rounding your back to do it, then just kind of nudge the blanket back. So you maybe go to 1 blanket. For my height, I kind of need the blanket. Now when you're rotating, you can feel how the left sitting bone lifts up. It's peeling up. So to avoid more sitting bone peel up positioning, feel that you lean a little bit of your right sitting bone center of the body. So you're trying to lean a little left, sitting upright. Use the right arm to press. If you've got your foot on the block, you're doing the same thing. But if you're short, this one can be a little challenging with the foot on the block. You have to work extra credit. Now release the pressure and turn back forward and take that left leg, take the sand off the right, take the left leg, stretch it straight back so that you feel like you're either here, kind of side into the hip for the beginning. And then take your time. Don't work like you've got to get into pigeon right away. Take your time to turn the front of the left thigh down, and then creep the hands back to orient the right knee back towards the bolster. It's not on top of it, it's in front of it. Arching the spine, lowering the left foot, the toes relax. I like to stay with the arched spine for as long as I can so I can keep strengthening my spine if it doesn't have any pain or there's no discomfort. This is probably a better position for me in the long run. Some of you might kind of lower down and sink into the elbows and like that. But that's not as good for my spine in the strength that around the spine as this would be, even though this takes more energy to do, I think. But anytime I can work with this back support, take a few more breaths here. So feel where the breath is pitching in the body. If it's really in the lower belly, that's great. This should feel like the abdomen is able to soften in this pose. Okay, now hands shift back. So if you're on the elbows, come back up. And then feel that right leg. Now, last shape, we have the knee, this right knee pointed kind of outwards. So when we switch over, we'll bring that left leg around. We'll just change it around. So left foot crosses in front, right foot forward, crossing the right leg forward of the left. Take the sand on top of the right thigh. There we go. And the ball under the left knee if you're using any ball. If you need something here, but you are going to be using your blocks, you could also, for this moment, stuff in a blanket. This works really good too. Just don't want it too high. right? So my leg has to kind of move into it. That's the idea. So it's probably just as well as the ball, I think. Because I want to find that my stature is kind of centering. I can let my sitting bones press down. Now this is where I feel there's a place between the rounding back and the spine extension. It's hard to even see. It's a feeling that, you know, when you create like that bucket back shape, you know, like when you sit in a car seat, you automatically kind of, this area doesn't have a good experience for that time. But if you're here, you can tilt, feel the sitting bones, and don't let the back swing back, right? Try to lean forward. Usually the blocks will help you out with keeping that length out of your back. So length out of the back is extension, ribs reaching. It's not flexion like a cat spine, right? So feel where that right thigh gets the stretch. And blocks can be wide. You can also move them towards the left if you like this version. I kind of like this. I just have to stay with my sitting bones just how they start. It's hard to, I don't want to swing my right sitting bone up. So I've got to plug in the middle, keep that isolation. And most of us, our ribs have had a good amount of movement so far. So they're probably flexible, even if it's just for the practice. Be good if it was beyond the practice, huh? So let's hope for that. So feeling where the arms are reaching out of the back. You can pull the blocks in a little closer if that's easier on the shoulders. Okay, so when you come back to the front with your blocks, bring your hands to your upper legs, up to the sand as well. When you come back up, center. It's not much movement, is it? But when you center, the move of the sand to the left thigh. Now, moving any blanket away. The last shape we did when we were reaching over to the left, it was hopefully stretching the right hip. So the seated twist is supposed to stretch your hip. So when your knee moves up, you know, this movement is going to stretch this lateral side of the right leg. I think it takes a little bit of discipline to figure that out. So as the knee goes up, cross the right leg over the left, or put a block down in front and put your right foot on that block. It can also be out and twist or pointing up. Okay, it's okay if you don't want to pull your knee up and you want your foot on the block. But feel when that body turns to the right. I know there's a choice here to do this. Yeah, once you get to bigger groups of watching people, you'll notice that this is almost an automatic if it's not attended to in your discipline, or it's like this kind of splaying back here. So you want to feel that the ribs go up. You don't have to do much movement. Turn to the right, hook the left arm to the leg, press and twist, bring out the torso. A good one to stay with for a good 12 to 15 breaths minimum. That's only a minute, right, in time for the rib cage. But massaging the digestive tract, the organs. Keep in mind that you want your abdomen to relax when you twist so that you can strengthen the diaphragm right here, right below the heart. I don't want to pull my belly in tight and then expect I can strengthen the breathing muscles. So then you can put the energy into the breath content, not the pulling of the stomach in. It'll happen on the exhale anyway. Okay, feel where you twist, whether it's the arm doing the work or the ribs. Okay, you're only twisting as much as your ribs go, not if your head turns farther, that doesn't count. So feel the ribs, the head goes with it, but not further. And then turn back forward. If you start to feel your shoulder, it's probably a good message to come out. I don't think it's a good idea to keep pressing away at the shoulder joint on this one. So it might be a minute pose for you, half a minute. But when you come back to the center, slide the sand away. And then let's bring the right leg back. So I lean into it. I have to kind of find my way into it without going for the final pose. Just feel my way into the thigh muscles. Stretch the right thigh back. Reach the torso forwards. And you respond with support, maybe use your blocks under your elbows. This feels pretty good this side. Because the hands down might hurt some of our wrists, right? This might cause inflammation here. So you might find elbows still help your spine extend. You might like to go deeper by having the elbows down, your forehead down. But keep in mind that does create a little bit of that rounded back, which we already get enough of. Okay, so feel where the hip balances, left side. Feel where the weight is on both hips. Move the ribs with the breath. And now the legs are probably really excited to get some more expansion. They've been kind of hooked at the knee. Most of the shapes, except for on our back, were a little bit more bendy. So let's work on the full leg extension, right? The movement through the heel up into the sitting bone. So when we come back to our hands, we're going to actually find our way to hands and knees. So I want you to shift. You're going to use the wall for this one under to your feet. So you probably have to either rotate around or take the right leg forwards and then find your way towards a wall space. So come around to your kneeling on one blanket. So you can use your blocks to the sides of your mat. I'm going to put mine just on one side so you can see what I'm up to, but put your blocks on one side. Actually, sorry, both sides. I'm on one side. Blanket is under my knees. And then as I lean into my arms, I want to work on the back of the knees stretching. So if your blanket feels too bulky, you can flatten it down. Mine is pretty bulky, but I'm pretty content with that. So my feet on the wall. The balls of the feet, not the whole sole. Some of you might find that you do feel your whole foot on the wall. It depends on how your wall, what the base of it is, if there is a baseboard. So the hands are wide and then you're stretching the torso forward. So and the challenge here is on dropping the hips too fast and then having a pressure in the back. So I have to use my hands to push the floor away and then find the right radius out of your back here to do this. So you have to kind of play with the dimension of movement. And you might have a little bit of movement. I think dementia sometimes, you're kind of, I don't even know what the reading is on this. So feel how your feet touch the wall and feel how you alternate the movement of the back, rounding and arching and reaching the chest. Okay, so start to become familiar with this simple process of pushing the floor away, stretching the armpit chest. That's a big one, is armpit chest even, especially if you happen to be dominant in one arm for activities. You really have to work on this one. And then feel when you push into your hands, the movement of the neck, pushing into your feet. And the next time you come back to table, place the hands under the shoulders and round your back into cat. Chin to chest. Inhale, arch the spine. And exhale, round the back. Feel the movement of the hips. If it's all shoulders and neck, feel if you can reach the hip bones back and up. Okay, now this is interesting. You feel kind of the action of hip. So you'll get some blocks and you'll place them under your hands. I would go for the second height of the block. The second setting is pretty good. Get enough space between the blocks that you can land a foot easily. And knees go together. Okay, and then step the right foot between them, between the blocks. And when you guide the right knee towards that lunge, right, towards the pushing forward, you can, some of you actually might prefer the blocks higher, huh? Looks like this might be better for some. So if this is better for your shoulders and your back muscle rounding, take the block a little higher, but push into that left foot and then negotiate balance. Lift up the back knee, okay? And I like to use the wall, but it doesn't make it easier necessarily. It makes the energy pretty dense, right? It's lifting up the density into the bones here. So you should feel some resistance going on. Be careful of this right knee though. It's not necessarily just the deal that you don't want over your toes, but you want to feel the composition of this underside of the right leg working to hold the balance. So if I take my foot farther forward, I'm probably getting a little better stimulation in the undercarriage of my right leg, which ends up strengthening the hip. Right, so try to stay with just the lunge. We're not going to add anything too dynamic, although I feel like this is dynamic. Good work. Feel the left leg pretty straight behind you, right, with the heel pressing. And then we're going to lift up a little bit more. So I would scoot the right foot back, scoot the blocks back. I'm at the high height with mine. I'm going to lean my left heel down so it's at the baseboard. It's a little up at the wall. Some of you might be able to get your heel down, but well, I'm not starting the new year with this calf very flexible, I guess. But sometimes it will lower down, but not right now. If you step your right foot a little bit out, but not turn the foot out, but take it a little farther out over, so you have two different tracks for the legs, it will probably improve that feel of flexibility on your back leg. Okay, bring one hand, the right hand would be best to your sacrum. Try to keep that right leg in a little bend. It doesn't have to be deep, but it's a little bending. And then turn the waist to the right. Oh, back heel, try to keep it reaching. If your heel is starting to spin in or out, touch the wall with it. That's better. So you know that it's more parallel. Otherwise, you get into these funky motions with the foot. Turn the waist. Just a little bit like your navel is trying to peek up over that right thigh. Okay, now turn back down. So you're centering and you'll step the left foot to the right, step the feet out as hips distance or wider. And here's two versions. You can either take your blocks farther forward, take your forward bend here. You can bring your hands to your elbows and take traction here. Now, either one is fine, but one will probably register better for you and your blood pressure. So if it's really tough for you to be in this type of inversion, you can bring your hands up to your blocks. This kind of works nicely, or a chair. And feel the heels pressing, feel the bottoms of the feet. Breathing. And this is an inversion. Right, so head is below the heart. Okay, now lifting to get the blocks. If you don't have them already, scoot them back towards your feet. Have them on the sides of the feet. Bring the feet closer together. And then take the right leg back, stepping it back to the wall. If the foot is pretty high up at the wall, lean down so that you can feel your heel lifted to start. Both feet right in two different tracks, so they're parallel but not in the same exact line. And then feel where that left knee is bending. We'll start up on this side, a little backward variation, but you can get a feel for the momentum when you stand and then step into the lunge. It's a little different from being on all fours into it. Even the spine's progress into the stretch. Okay, now the right heel, try to reach the heel towards the floor or the baseboard. Just feel if you can lower the right heel downwards. You know, if the calf is just really rock solid, then the heels probably has to be up at the wall. So now you kind of, next time maybe warm up the calf before class. Huh? Either with heat or massage or stretching would be helpful. Okay, so the right hand has the block under it, and you'll bring the left hand to the sacrum and turn the waist to the left. Now, I tend to start to stretch my leg up when I twist. So I have to remind myself, okay, stay with the heel to the wall. For me, that's working better than the floor. Left knee is just forward. It's not even to my ankle yet. So that's where it's at. And then I isolate in the torso and I turn left so I get a feel. Now, if you're feeling like you're going to buckle, like it's just too much shakiness, then don't take the twist. Maybe you're here, and that's better. I don't want you to twist and then fumble out of it. So you kind of get a feel of rotation. See if you can start to lengthen that left leg a little bit, straighten it out. It doesn't have to be fully solid, but feel if you push back, little bend of the knee. Now you can feel a difference from when we started class with the leg stretch and the belt. This is different. It's a little more muscular, isn't it? Because you're putting all your body weight into it. Okay, turn back down to the center, but lower the back knee, either just above the blanket or down to the blanket. Okay. Now feel where you're lunging and reaching the torso. You can have your blocks lower, you can keep them as high. This is going to be a preparatory shape for bridge pose coming up. So feel the reach of the right thigh. Really feel that stretch to the front of the back leg. Be cautious of the left knee over the ankle. Can be right above the ankle, but not tipping towards the toes. Okay, now let's shift our left leg back to the right and take an up dog. You can use your blocks flat for this one, hands on, and stretch forward so you have this reach of the chest. I like the blocks for this version, but some of you might be on the floor with your hands. Okay, so the stretches of the waist. Now notice how the back has a little bit more finesse for this version. Okay, it's a different draw for the spine. And then we'll come back just a moment in table and take a leg forward so you can sit down, turn to the wall, and let's take our bolster right up at the base flat, right up into the wall. Okay, so take a block so you have one. If you've got a ball, you want that too. But you're going to slide this blanket back so it's at its lowest height for you under your head. Right? You don't want it curled up or too much height. So as I lower down to my back, I have my feet on the bolster, close to the wall, and my head is on the blanket, not my shoulders. Add the block, that's why I have block or ball between the knees. And you'll lift the hips up and, okay, this is similar to what we did moments ago, but it feels different when you're on your back than if you're pushing into your hands. So use your arms, not your hands as much as your elbows. You could try pushing into your hands, but I'm assuming your shoulders are kind of wing out. So the elbows are nice as you lift the hips and you stretch the frontal layer of the thigh lid. Okay, now lower down, and I want you to alternate this with the arms overhead. So push into the bolster, lift the arms overhead, and then lower down through the spine. Yes, so try to create that movement dynamic of alternating, lifting the hips, breathing, and then lowering down. Now, if you're squeezing into the ball, like about 20%, that would be great, but you don't have to add that discipline. It's already there between the knees, so likely your legs have some responsibility to having something stuck there. They're going to adapt to it. Now, next time you lower down, bring the knees towards your chest, remove the ball. If you have one, do a little self-massage underneath your left glute. So you'll just roll the ball under the left glute and massage a little side to side. You let your hips shift side to side like you're wagging your tail. And you want to feel the collected pressure onto that ball. So it's both pressure and movement. That's what massage is, right? It's like a body part pressing in and then creating movement. But for us, it's the ball that's massaging that area. Okay, now go to the other glute. So the glutes have had a little bit of a workout, right? From the standing shape into this next one we're going to. So kind of link into where you feel like that massage is helpful. It might not be in the middle of the buttock, it might be towards the side of the hip, but take a few more guided movements with the hip side to side. Okay, taking a few more seconds. If you don't have the ball, what you could do is hips on the ground, windshield wiper knees side to side. That works pretty good too. Okay, move the ball away. And now let's slide back a little bit away from the bolster, but we still have it under our feet. Blanket is just under my head. We're going to get a block, and we're going to get a second one. They're going to be side to side. So they're at the second setting, side to side under the pelvis. So place one on each side of your hip. And I just like to kind of pack them in. And then as I push my feet down and lift my hips up, then I slide the blocks in under the back of my pelvis, right up to the lumbar, but not to my ribs, just maybe lightly touching, but nothing higher than my lower back. And then I push my feet. Yeah, I could be a little closer to the wall because I would like to touch the wall firmly with my whole foot. Okay, so you're creating this dynamic in the back muscles. And then the front of the hip bones, you want that to open up. So if you're finding that it's not naturally occurring for you, that separation doesn't naturally occur, you can put a sandbag across the thigh lids because it will certainly make that happen. You don't have much choice because the sand will distribute that circulation. But the feet at the wall help so that the knees don't split out. And you could bring them closer because I know they're likely going to slide out. Shoulders are round and back to the ground. That will help also. The whole thing, right? All these little parts help. Hands are reaching, they're scooping the shoulders down and in, elbows in. Hands are down from there. And take a few moments here. Try to push into your feet evenly. That is not happening. Focus on what's on the bolster and see if that can be even. I know you likely have a dominant side that you lean into more. So use the practice for it's kind of arduous work, right? To find the balance. And feel a few moments of slow, deep breathing. If you have sand, slide it away and feel how the front hip zone is balanced. It's pretty even because of the block height. So now we're going to try to keep that balance moving to the side band of the hip. So do as gentle as a bend of the knees as you can. Don't make it as harsh as possible. Just slide the feet on the bolster. And then how you push out of it probably affects your lower back a bit. So if I kind of dig into my heels, it can be a little aggressive in my back. So I try to persuade the weight into my feet, distribute it throughout them, although it's mostly my heels. And then slide the blocks away and take a moment when you lower your spine down that you can feel that balance in the mid back and then the kind of the thud of the lower back, which is very brick-like pieces, right? They're very thick vertebrae. So when you slide back, you don't have to go very far away from the wall here. I'm going to scoop up my blanket so I have a higher lift under my head, slide it under right up to my neck base, and then cross the left leg to the bolster. Where's my bolster? Kick your bolster from the wall over to the right side. All right, so as I cross over, I can add my ball to the sacrum and maybe a sandbag to the outer left leg. So kind of get a feel of how you're moving now from the waist into the hip. So you get a full program today. This is the whole deal. Okay. All right, each chapter. I wonder how many chapters we have today. So let the left arm open, and you might feel a little bend of the elbow can feel more soothing for the rib, chest area. But trying to get a curve here, I think, is important, like this. You know, when you do the seated twist, they're difficult. But when you're on your back doing the twist, it's like the more you can surrender the body, the easier it is. Well, that's a general statement, huh? But when you feel that rotation, it really could be pretty elementary, but feel like it's good release. Belly moves with the breath. You're feeling the stretch of the inhale. And then how the leg probably gets a little more stretch on the exhale, right? The inhale fills up the lungs. And then exhale, letting go. Okay, now when we switch sides, simple, slide the sand, ball, shift the knees, bring the feet to the floor so the knees point up, scoot the hips, and you may launch them over to the right immediately, but see if you can find the center plane of the pelvis. And we feel the pelvis most often from sitting, and that's rounding the back. So this is a good way to work with the pelvis so you create that anterior tilt, right? So it helps our backs out quite a bit. So take the bolster over to the left. If you're using a bolster, you don't have to. You could do these crossovers without, but I think it's nice. And cross the right leg to the left side on the bolster, add the ball and the sand. And yeah, you might use the ball and try to focus on creating more turn or torque in the back, but kind of good to do less of that, right? Feel just what's neutral and then the crossover of the leg, and let that be that, not any further. Sand is closer to the knee, probably is a little bit easier on the knee joint, although it maybe doesn't seem like it would be, but if I bring it higher to my hip, it's going to be more strain. If your knee doesn't have any handicaps at all, that could be just fine, but there's a few of us that might not like that pull. So turn your head to the right. Feel if the blanket's the right height for you. And just feel where the weight is into the back of the pelvis. For me, it's mostly on my left hip. It's not on my right. And that's where the twist is, right through that right thigh, lifting up into the ribs. And we're going to be real specific here on our pace through the completion of the session. So feel how your inhale length is. But you might notice that your inhale is 4 to 5 counts easily on this rotation, unless you're congested, right? That won't come up, right? These poses will kind of let you see how you're doing inside. You can evaluate sometimes your health with your respiratory muscles. Something's creeping in. So try to work with strengthening them through the practice. Happy, rosy lungs. That's what we're looking for. Good tone. You know, even though you might leave the pose still feeling like there's more to stretch, that's probably happening all the time. You know, notice if you can make connection with the end of the shape. Okay, slide the ball away. Then you could slide the sand away so there's an even ability to rotate now. And roll left with shoulders and ribs and push to come up and slide the blankie and the bolster against the wall flat. Actually, the bolster is flat again. And then you're going to scoot up to the wall with your seat. Blanket is closer than you probably think, right? You're not that long to the other end of the mat. I'm not, but. And then I'm going to have my other blanket nearby because I do like to put it on me. And then when I lean into my shoulder, then you swing the legs up. So if you're confused, if it's confused auto here, you want to lean down and the body weight in your upper body helps you swing the lower body up. I know it's pretty simple science, but when you try to get into aerial positions upside down, it can be a psychological, really challenge, I think. So once you're upside down though, and this becomes really common awareness for you, you know, you might start working with chair, shoulder stand, or other awareness patterns upside down. Now start with the sand. So you add that to your feet. And now maybe you have a warm sandbag you could put near a heater. That would be good for this one. Okay, maybe I'll even add that on next time. Okay, so we put the feet so that they're naturally balanced with the sand. So they're not striving, they just are grounded to create that weight into the hips. Then maybe you have the blanket, or if you have a couple sandbags, you could add a sandbag on top of your blanket so you're warm, because sand against you might be cooler than you were hoping for when you put the sandbag on you. Usually it's weight, but it's cooling. And then as you lower your arms, they're down below the height of the heart because we're relaxing and lowering the blood pressure. And so I don't want my arms back here. Although it's been taught, you see all the time, but the ideal with this awareness is to relax the heart and the brain. You lower the eyelids so that you can get a feeling of the eye sockets. If you happen to have an eye pillow, it's pretty excellent for this idea with the eyes. Back into the brain. And gradually, inhalation filters through the nostrils, fills the ribs, and exhale back towards the spine. And try to keep the head centered. If you are kind of rolling it side to side, you might find just centering it and adjusting shoulders back and down. Slow, deep breath. In the last few moments, feel if you're working on both sides of the lungs, or if you can even monitor that. If you're even aware of right and left side, or if it's just kind of a uni lung feeling for you. You know, if the breath gets caught up in the upper chest from time to time, still come back to how the legs are, that circulation down to the abdomen, and then let the belly move with the breath. Sometimes it can get thrown back up to the chest piece on this pose. But you need kind of a high amount of concentration to keep the breath there in the torso. And now slowly move the feet away from the wall. You can feel the action of reach from the sitting bone to the heel. If the legs kind of wander a little side to side, that's fine. Might be entertaining for you. And then bend. And as you bend, nothing in the top bends, right? So it's all lower. So it's so isolated, right? In the muscles. Some of these shapes can be excellent for that strength. And then shift your sand. You might toss it overhead. I can't hear it if you are. And if we do hear it, we'll let you know. And feel the knees in. Now you might go ahead and keep the blanket on when you come up to sitting, and just it happens to be in your lap. But when you get a feel of rolling to either side, you get a feel of moving your legs over and then your torso secondary, and then push to come up, and then balance your back up onto a place out of the pelvis. So you can feel, that's the title of the moment, place out of the pelvis. Okay. Feel where the shoulders are back and the chest is centered. Nothing more, just simple, pure centering of the chest. Can you let the shoulders lower down so it's not tightening the chest up? And lift the hands to meet together, palm to palm, forward of the heart, surrendering the brain down to the heart center and breathing here. And let's unite our focus of breath to support the collective practicing for our better sensation and outwards to heal. Take a deep breath in and exhale, bowing into your heart. In gratitude